Good morning. It's Monday, the 17th of February. You're tuned in to our 10 a.m. newscast coming to you from ARIRANG's news centre in Seoul. Let's take a look at what's making the headlines. A deadly bomb attack on a Korean tour bus in Egypt kills at least 4, including 3 Koreans, and injures around 15 others. The Korean government has pledged to provide all necessary assistance to the victims and their families. As part of President Park's 3-year economic plan, the government will announce measures that include slashing red tape to spur investment and supporting small and mid-sized businesses. Plus, authorities say the amount of oil spilled into waters of Korea's southeastern port city of Busan over the weekend is greater than the other recent oil spill in waters off the south coast. We start with the sad news out of Egypt that Korea had to wake up to this morning. At least 3 Koreans have been killed in a suspected bomb attack on a tourist bus in Egypt's northeastern Sinai peninsula. For more details, we have our correspondent Hwang Sung-hee on the line at Seoul's Foreign Ministry. So, Sung-hee, details are still emerging, but what is the latest information we are getting?
Mark, Korea's Foreign Ministry confirmed that 4 people, including 3 Koreans and 1 Egyptian bus driver, were killed after an explosion ripped through their bus near a border crossing between Egypt and Israel on Sunday. The suspected bomb attack has also left 14 injured, and they're being treated at nearby hospitals. The bus was carrying 35 people, 32 Korean nationals from a church in Jincheon, Chungcheongbuk-do Province, 2 Korean tour guides, and an Egyptian bus driver. They are waiting to cross the border to Israel after spending a night at Sinai when an armed man, suspected to be in his 20s, threw a bomb at the bus. The group was reportedly on a 12-day pilgrimage that included stops to Turkey, Egypt, and Israel. The Egyptian government is still working on the case, so we will have more details after the investigation. However, the Egyptian Prime Minister has declared the incident as a terrorist attack, although no group has stepped forward to take responsibility. And whether the attack targeted specifically Koreans or foreigners or tourists remain unclear. Mark, militants in Sinai have stepped up their attacks against government forces in recent months after the army ousted President Mohamed Morsi last July.
Yeah, some shocking video there. And so how is Korea's foreign ministry responding to this attack?
Well, the Foreign Ministry has dispatched 8 officials in total from its embassies in Egypt and Israel to the site of the attack. The ministry also set up a task force team and held an emergency meeting at 1 a.m. Monday in Seoul to collect details and to come up with countermeasures. A delegation from Korea will leave for Egypt later this morning. And as the injured are currently having a hard time with communication at their hospital, the embassy has asked the Egyptian government to provide translators. Meanwhile, as part of preventive measures against similar incidents from recurring, the Foreign Ministry has asked all Korean nationals traveling in Egypt and its 4 neighboring countries, Israel, Jordan, Turkey, and Saudi Arabia, to return as soon as possible. It has also issued a special travel warning to Egypt, practically banning all Korean nationals from visiting the region. Mark?
Well, thank you, Sung-hee, and do keep us updated throughout the day. That was our Hwang Sung-hee with the latest on this suspected bomb attack in Egypt that has killed at least 3 Korean tourists. Now, in response to a media report of a possible Korea-Japan leaders summit next month, Korea's presidential office says no talks are currently underway for a meeting between President Park Geun-hye and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. Speaking to reporters Sunday, an official from Cheongwade said the 2 countries would first have to resolve a range of historical and territorial issues before their leaders can meet face-to-face. The comments came after Japan's Nihon Keizai Shimbun newspaper said Tokyo had high hopes for a leaders' summit with Seoul and that it would soon propose a meeting on the sidelines of next month's nuclear security summit in The Hague. The official, however, declined to confirm whether or not Seoul has received such a proposal from Tokyo. Prosecutors here in Korea have reopened a case involving a Japanese rock band's defamatory comments against Korean victims of Japan's wartime sexual slavery. The Seoul Central District Prosecutor's Office has resumed its investigation into CDs and lyrics mailed to the so-called comfort women in February of last year. The package sent by the ultra-right-wing rock band Scramble contained songs and lyrics of death threats against the victims, in which it referred to the women as, quote, prostitutes. While the victims have since filed charges against the band, prosecutors were unable to successfully identify the senders and have formally requested the Japanese government's cooperation. It, however, remains uncertain whether Tokyo will respond to the request. The Korean government is aiming to give the economy another shot in the arm by announcing the detailed measures of its three-year economic plan. The package of measures, to be officially laid out before the end of the month, will focus on cutting red tape and boosting the country's 5 brightest sectors, including education, finance and software. Shin Se-min reports.
The Korean government is gearing up a new 3-year economic plan that includes a negative list system for deregulation in an effort to boost investment. Government officials said Sunday that the new plan will ease restrictions within regulations and streamline red tape. The new plan will mainly bolster Korea's promising industrial sectors, namely health, education, tourism, finance and software. The plan, which will be announced before the end of the month, also aims to boost the number of women and young people in the workforce and ease the financial burden of private education. In an effort to raise the nation's slumping youth employment level, students not entering university will be able to receive vocational training. The government will also provide financial support to small and medium-sized media content developers to promote the sector as a high-valued industry. The government will also adjust underground economic activities, enforce strict taxation, and eliminate unfair business practices on smaller companies. Regarding the inter-Korean relations, the government is also looking to include reunification matters as part of the 3-year plan. President Park Geun-hye has said her administration has set itself a 474 goal by the end of her term, which means 4% economic growth, a 70% employment rate, and an annual per capita income of around $40,000. Shin Se-min, ARIRANG News.
3 of the nation's largest credit card firms will be subject to a 3-month business suspension from this Monday as punishment for the leak of millions of customers' financial data. The Financial Services Commission says KB Financial Group, Nonghyop Financial Group and retailer Lotte Group have been banned from issuing new credit and debit cards or extending loans until May 16th. Existing customers will be provided with financial services as usual. The 3 firms estimate the business suspension will cost them a combined $1.9 billion in lost business. Tens of millions of cardholders were affected by last month's breach, the largest in the country's history. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un paid his respects to his late father Kim Jong-il on Sunday to mark the former leader's 72nd birthday. Kim Jong-il's birthday is one of the most important holidays in the North, along with the birthday of regime founder Kim Il-sung. The young leader, accompanied by his top military officials, visited the Kumsusan Palace of the Sun in Pyongyang, where his father's embalmed body lies in state. While paying their respects, Kim and his entourage promised to be loyal to the Kim family line. Now, it's been a year in the making, and on Monday, UN panel is set to conclude North Korea should face international punishment for its systematic abuse of its own people. According to reported leaks of the findings, the UN Commission of Inquiry on the North's human rights will say the regime has committed crimes against humanity and should be referred to the International Criminal Court in The Hague. North Korea has long been accused of grave rights abuses, ranging from holding hundreds of thousands of political prisoners in concentration camps to committing torture and public executions. Pyongyang has long denied the accusations. The Commission will present its final report to the UN Human Rights Council next month. Back here in South Korea, and lawmaker Lee Seok-gi of the far-left Unified Progressive Party will learn his fate later today as a local court will hand down its final verdict on whether he is guilty of plotting to overthrow the government. Prosecutors are demanding a 20-year jail term and that he be stripped of his civic rights for another 10 years following his eventual release, as they believe he led a clandestine organisation that was plotting to topple a government in the event of an inter-Korean war. He is also accused of sympathizing with North Korea in violation of South Korea's anti-communist national security law. All other defendants also face lengthy jail sentences if convicted. The Suwon District Court is expected to pass its judgment at around 4 p.m. Korea time. Now, Korea's southern coast has been hit by yet another disastrous oil spill, this time in waters off the port city of Busan. Well over 200,000 litres of oil leaked into the water after a freighter collided with an oil tanker on Saturday. Kim Hyun-bin reports.
237,000 litres. That's how much oil officials say gushed into the sea after a Liberian-registered freighter collided with an oil tanker on Saturday. The amount of oil spilled is over 70,000 litres more than during another oil spill in Yeosu last month. Over the weekend, the Coast Guard managed to place a 500-meter-long oil fence around the main spill to try and contain it, and chemical dispersants are being sprayed onto it. The police said they succeeded in sealing off the hole in the vessel 3 hours after the collision. The only positive news thus far is that no oil has been found near the seashore yet, and no cases of contamination damage have been reported. There are, however, concerns fish farms about 5 kilometers from the spill could become contaminated. The maritime police say it'll take about 4 days of cleanup work to prevent any secondary damage.
We have 70 vessels deployed to contain the spill, including response vessels. The cleanup work is expected to take a few more days.
The Korea Coast Guard suspects poor weather conditions and high waves to be the main cause of the crash. But the maritime police say they'll launch a probe to determine the exact cause of the accident as soon as the cleanup work is finished. Kim Hyun-bin, ARIRANG News.
Now, it may have dropped out of the headlines in recent days, but Korea remains in the grips of a bird flu crisis, with more cases confirmed over the weekend at poultry farms in the city of Cheonan and Cheongyang County in Korea's central Chungcheongbuk-do Province. Local officials said Sunday that they will slaughter all chickens and ducks within a 500-meter radius of the affected farms and selectively cull birds within a 3-kilometer radius. Officials have also designated more than a dozen medical facilities to treat workers who may have post-traumatic stress disorder after culling their birds, and will provide financial compensation to the farmers in the coming weeks. Since the outbreak was first reported last month, over 230,000 birds have been culled at poultry farms in Chungcheongbuk-do Province alone. The Korean government has pledged to provide more support for the military cyber security forces in order to respond to the growing threat of cyber terrorism. And the boost in national defense is also expected to help promote entrepreneurship and innovation in the science and technology sectors. Paul Lee reports.
Here at a leading university in Seoul, a special class is in session where students are being taught the basics of cyber warfare. Some of the tactics include learning how to prevent computer hacking attacks, tracking IP addresses, and creating online countermeasures. The intense workshop takes place in the so-called War Room and is part of the school's cyber defense program.
In terms of security, it's not just about operating a computer. We also receive instructions in mathematics, computer programming, and military classes.
Launched in 2012 in cooperation with the Defense Ministry, this elite program recruits gifted freshmen and trains them in high-level hacking and science-related technology.
We start with basic instruction in areas such as information security. Then students are taught a wide range of topics, including cyber law and cyber policies. Also, they are able to deal with incoming cyber threats and cyber terrorism.
Similar joint development programs have already been established at 5 other special research universities, including KAIST and POSTECH. It's part of a greater initiative by the government to foster Korea's next generation of information security experts and cyber intelligence officers.
The ministry will establish social support measures to advance graduate school enrollment and employment, as well as provide support for startups. In cooperation with the Defense Ministry, we will also provide recruitment information for job seekers in the defense sector.
Modeled after Israel's Elite Forces training program, Korea aims to train more soldiers that can effectively respond to cyber-terrorism threats to enhance national security, all the while improving the country's expertise in science, technology, and engineering. Paul Yi, ARIRANG News.
Korea's Culture Ministry has selected this year's brands that will best represent the Korean wave. They include the Korean language, the traditional song ARIRANG, and the popular sport of Taekwondo. The ministry hopes they will all promote the country's image and meet the growing international demand for all things Korean. Park Ji-won reports.
The explosion of K-pop music and Korean dramas around the world has fueled surging interest among fans and students alike in learning the Korean language. In order to meet the rise in demand, the Ministry of Culture, Sports and Tourism announced that it would expand its support of overseas language and cultural institutes. The ministry said it would increase the total number of King Sejong institutes throughout the world, with a goal of reaching 180 branches by 2017. Named after the founding father of Hangul, the educational institutes were first launched by the government in 2005. In addition, Korean cultural centers will get a funding boost so they can plan routes in more foreign locations over the next 4 years. Meanwhile, the Hangul Museum, a national museum devoted to the Korean alphabet Hangul, will open in Yongsan, central Seoul this October.
There is a great demand internationally to learn Korean. The waiting list for foreigners who want to learn Korean at cultural centers or King Sejong institutes is usually 3 months. In some cases, it's so popular that some people have to wait 5 months.
The ministry also plans to promote the traditional Korean folk song ARIRANG with a major festival dedicated to it this October. ARIRANG became part of UNESCO's Intangible Cultural Heritage in 2012. Korean martial arts is another area of focus for the government. The new Taekwondo One Park in Chungcheongbuk-do Province will be holding its grand opening ceremony on April 24th, with its vast facilities dedicated to the education, training, and research of the popular sport. The trifecta of Hangul, ARIRANG, and Taekwondo is expected to build a foundation for the Korean wave in 2014 as the country further invests in its cultural assets at home and abroad. Park Ji-won, ARIRANG News.
U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry is urging the international community to take steps to tackle climate change. Speaking in Jakarta on Sunday, Kerry said man-made climate change could threaten our entire way of life, adding it can now be considered as a natural weapon of mass destruction. Kerry said there's scientific evidence climate change was also threatening the world economy. He added that warming sea temperatures could negatively affect Indonesia's fishing industry, while rising sea levels could put much of the country underwater. Combating climate change was also the main agenda during Kerry's talks in China over the weekend.
And a good Monday morning to you all as we kick off the second week of our Sochi coverage with Kim Yeonha's latest practice before she defends her Olympic title later this week. Now, while she spent some time rooting for the South Korean short track team over the weekend, she also spent time practicing on the main ice rink for the first time. And while the figure queen didn't like the ice conditions on the other ice rink, she stated that the main ice rink where she will compete later this week was very hard and was in good condition. She added that she saw a lot of the mistakes during the men's competition and was worried about the ice conditions, but was satisfied after her practice over the weekend. Meanwhile, she's set to have her short program on Thursday, followed by her free skating performance on Friday. Now, South Korean fans were introduced to a sport which really took off in popularity this year thanks to the recent success of the South Korean women's curling team. And despite their best efforts, they were mathematically eliminated from the Olympics. Now, going up against the 6th-ranked Denmark, the Korean women's curling team, who've earned the nickname Curls Day, fell short, losing 7-3, leaving their record at 2 wins and 5 losses. And with the loss, they will not be able to advance to the next round, even if they win all their remaining round-robin matches. And moving over to the much-anticipated bobsledding event where two Korean teams headed into their two-person event earlier today. And the first race, the team of Won Yun-jung and Seo Young-woo finished 18th overall after coming in a time of 57.41 seconds, with Kim Dong-hyun and Chun Jung-rin finishing 25th with their final time at 57.78 seconds. And in the second race, they improved their time just a bit as Won Yun-jung and Seo Young-woo finished their second race in 57.20 seconds, with Kim Dong-hyun and Chun Jung-rin finishing at 57.76 seconds. Now, the final time after two races is good for 19th and 25th place overall, as Russia is currently in first place with a combined time of 1 minute 52.82 seconds. And moving over to the women's 1500-meter speed skating event where the Dutch skaters proved once again that they're the best in the world when it comes to speed skating, as long as it's not the 500-meter speed skating event against Lee Sang-hwa. Now on Sunday, the Netherlands finished first, second, and third after Joran Termors finished first with an Olympic record time of 1 minute 53.51 seconds for the gold medal, followed by Irene Wust in second with Lotte van Beek in third for the bronze. Meanwhile, the Korean skaters did their best as Kim Bo-eun finished 21st overall, followed by No Sun-young at 29th and Yan Chin-young at 36th overall. And shifting gears to the Alpine Ski Super G event where Bodie Miller made history after becoming the oldest alpine skier to win an Olympic medal. At 36 years and 127 days, the American came in tied for third with a final time of 1 minute 18.67 seconds as he claims the bronze medal along with Jean Hudek of Canada. With the teary-eyed Miller went through a knee injury which sidelined him in 2013 and a devastating death of his younger brother last April. And now finishing things off, let's take a look at how everyone is faring so far in the medal standings after 9 days of competition in Sochi. Of course, taking a look here, we see that Germany holds on to the top spot with 7 gold medals, as the Netherlands up there in second. Switzerland making a huge jump up to fourth with 5 gold medals, where Russia making the top 5 with 4 gold medals. Meanwhile, Korea drops down to 17th after Shim Seok-hee added a silver in the women's 1500-meter short track event over the weekend. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
And time now to check in on the weather conditions in Korea and around the world. And that's all for now. Thanks ever so much for joining us. We'll be back at noon Korea time. But in the meantime, you can always catch up with what's been happening on our website, which can be found at arirang.co.kr/news.